Hello, this is Pixel Freak, and today I'm doing a playthrough of Battleheart. Start to finish, we are going to go through the entire game. So this has been heavily edited, and I took out all the grinding pieces and some of the menu parts, and so if you're thinking, wait a minute, why do you have that equipment or why do you have that skill all of a sudden? That's because I edited it out. So this is the tutorial. The game starts out here. This is actually a fantasy action RPG type game. I'd have to say this is probably my favorite or one of my favorite games that's out on any platform. I really enjoyed this game. This game is actually probably the inspiration for why I'm even doing this, why I'm doing this whole channel. So the game works like this. You get up to 4 players. You start with 2 here, and enemies come at you from the left and the right. And as the tutorial kind of walks you through here, you see you drag your characters. There you go, drag the warrior over, and you can move that way. In addition, you can actually attack enemies that way as well. So you can see here, it has kind of an action line, and then you drag to the place. So the warrior's name is Shepherd. I can't remember, I think it's Lucille or something like that is the cleric's name. There's a lot of different characters, and we'll get into that a little bit later. I actually only use 4 of the characters. I think there's, in the Android version, which is the one I'm playing, there's like 10 characters, something like that. The iOS version has a couple additional characters. It's got like a ranger and a paladin that aren't in this game, and so I won't be showing those ones off. I'm only going to be using the 4 for the playthrough, but I'm going to do some supplemental videos as well to show all the different characters and maybe some different strategies and stuff in the game. Mostly I'm just doing this video because, well, I want to, and it's my goddamn channel. So I thought, hey, I'd make a video about the game I like. So you can see here as it's going through, if you've been watching, I haven't been commenting on what's been going on, but you can see you draw action lines between characters. For instance, the cleric to the warrior will actually heal the warrior. The cleric, however, can't fight, only can heal. So you have to protect the cleric by attacking with your various other characters. Now here in the tutorial, it also tells you at one point that enemies are actually forced to attack the enemy that has enemies are forced to attack the ally, your character, that has the highest defense. Not necessarily true. There are enemies in the game that will become fixated on one ally or another, and once they're fixated, they will not lose their fixation. There's no way to break them to go to another one of your characters. In those cases, you kind of have to use kiting skills, which I'll cover as well. You also get these cool skills in the upper left-hand corner, which is what the game is showing off right now. The cleric starts out with a group heal that heals all characters in the game all at once, but it only heals them for a little bit. This is in contrast to the cleric's regular attack, or I guess it's a heal, where she constantly heals whatever characters that they're fixated on. So now we're going to enter the main menu, and I'll kind of show that off real quick here before we jump into the meat of the game, which is the individual levels. So to start out, we jumped into the armory. You can see it's kind of explaining things here, and if you don't want to listen to me, don't listen to me, just read the screen. The armory, however, is where you equip all the equipment that you have. You can also upgrade your equipment from that screen. So here it is. There's nothing in my inventory. You can see I have 15 gold, and you can see that Shepherd, there's Lucille, my characters, they each have 2 items. There's slots for 2 accessories, which I don't have any accessories yet, so there's none to equip. So that's the merchant. The merchant will actually allow you to purchase new equipment, and that equipment refreshes between every time you reload the game or every time you finish a fight. So if you want to get new equipment before you have to go fight something, just keep loading the game. It's not a very effective way to do it. I'd usually just go out and beat a small level, that way you get a little bit of experience, then go back into the store and see what kind of new equipment's there. You also have this, which is the academy, where you'll unlock skills. The skills unlock every 5 levels up to level 30, and each character has unique skills. Now it depends, I guess it's every character class. So this is the tavern where you can actually also recruit new characters. First available is there's just 2, an assassin and a mage, or a wizard. I guess it's a wizard. I hire the wizard. I end up hiring a monk as well, and those are my 4 characters that I keep. Just the warrior, the cleric, the wizard, and the monk. More become available as you go. There's only a handful of them that are ever really available, and it's kind of fun to hire all the different ones and level them up. If you're just going straight through the game, I would recommend my approach, which is just pick 4 characters and kind of run through the game. So here you can see that's the map, and I've picked the first stage. We'll just jump right into it, and I'll explain the map a little bit more the next time it comes around. So the game starts out, and you can go ahead and use your action items, kind of strays your guys out. I kind of like to take a tactic of kind of keeping my casters in the center, and then I like to have a melee character on each the front and the back, because enemies do come from the front and the back. In the beginning, really, with a couple casters, the approach that I've used, really you just need Shepherd to go in there and just hit everybody, keep them alive with the Cleric, and then use Bromswell, who's the caster, to kind of clean up. He's kind of a DPS type role where he's doing most of the damage. At this point in time, Shepherd's not super strong. He does some damage, but really he's a tank character. He's there to take a beating. So, of the beginning skills that we have Shepherd, who's the warrior. He has a defensive skill. By activating that, it actually boosts his armor by some percent. Bromswell, who just casted a huge fireball, has a huge fireball for his skill. It actually gets a little stronger later on in the game. There gets some modifying skills as you go through the game. And then Lucille, as we saw before, has the group heal. Now at level 5, they actually begin to get more skills, and unfortunately, because of the way I edited this video, we might not see all the skills for all the characters. I'll try to make comments about them as we go. Some of them, however, are passive, so if you want to see the whole skill trees on all the characters, you're going to have to wait just a little bit until I get that video up and running, and I'm going to have different videos for all of the characters, hopefully, or at least maybe one video that shows through all the different character classes, so you can see the skill trees and kind of hear a little bit about some of the different tactics to use that are, I don't know, I thought kind of fun. So fighting these first few levels is pretty much the same across the levels. It's really just rush Shepherd out there, get aggro from the thing like that bat. Now it's going after Lucille, so now we need to get Shepherd out there to either draw attack. There we go. And we can see here, since that bat has actually seen Lucille, and then Bromswell had hit the bat, that bat actually knew that Lucille had a higher defense than Bromswell, and that's why it continued to hit Lucille. That can actually cause problems later on in the game. If you have a character that's got higher defense than your tank, which actually happens at one point to my monk, he just levels a little faster, or his armor happens to go up a little bit faster, the enemies are going to attack that monk. Well, that's not very good for a monk because the monk's a DPS character. So after every level, it kicks you back out here to the menu, and it's always a good idea to kind of double check your armory, which I'm not going to do. I'm just going to go straight into the next level. Okay, I guess we're going to check the armory on the next one. So for the first couple levels, I guess you can get away with this, what I just did. But it's always a good idea to check the merchant to see what kind of new equipment is in there, because there might be an upgradable piece for one of your characters. You always want to pick up those upgradable pieces. So this level, again, fought very similar to the last one. You're just bringing your tank out there, having your DPS support, and your cleric kills your tank. Not very complicated. So one of the things I've really loved about this game is the graphic design. All the characters there's almost an irony to it, I guess, because you have like this very cutesy, cartoony design, but the game is about slaughtering everything in sight. Bats, for instance. Bats gotta die. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that bats gotta die. It's also interesting, too, if you look at the characters, nobody's got a nose or a mouth, which is very peculiar. How are they breathing? We don't need to breathe. We're cartoons. Fuck breathing. I just thought it was kind of funny. But nonetheless, the graphics design it works so well for a smart device because it's very simplistic, and yet at the same time it's really fun. Just like playing a cartoon. Interesting as well is that because the graphics are so simple, the game runs really, really well on just about any device. So every device that I've ever played this thing on, it works really, really well. I was able to capture at an amazing frames per second in 1080p, and I had absolutely no problems. So I'll probably shut up through some of these fights just because there's not always a whole lot to comment on. When there is, I will continue to comment. When there isn't, I'm just going to go ahead and shut up. This right now, going to be one of those shut up moments. Alright, victories. So I should have mentioned at the end of the last level, at the end of each level you get a little bit of gold, you get a random item that's about the level of that level, and you get some experience points. You also can have accessories that give you additional experience points that are dropped later in the game or sold in the merchant. You can also get items that give you more gold per level. So go ahead and take a look at the tavern, some of the new characters that are in there. Looks like we got a berserker, a witch, and a monk that are new. And as I previously mentioned, I pick the monk. The witch I've played through with before, she's okay. Some people will probably scream at me for saying that, but whatever. I like the monk. The monk's a cool character. I've also played through the game with the berserker. I've probably been through this game about 4 or 5 times. Actually, the first time I took a look at this game was actually when I think I had like 7 subscribers. Was how many people I had when I first reviewed this game, so it's been a while. And the game was old at that point. I mean, it's been a year since then now, just about a year. And this game at that point in time I think was a year old. So this game, it's been around for a while, and I maintain that this is probably still one of the best games out on iOS or Android. The unfortunate part about that is that Micromobile has actually, in March of 2012, released a blog post that said that they will no longer be making games for Android, at least for the foreseeable future. And part of the problem that they were having there was the customer support was a nightmare for them because they were a very indie studio, and it was just 2 people working out of Seattle, which is interesting because I'm also in Seattle. But they didn't have the manpower to actually run the customer support that Android games required. So they were giving up the development of those games for the time being. It's part of the reason why we didn't get the upgrade with the additional 2 characters on Android. There's other reasons why as well. So unfortunately, Battleheart 2, which is coming out in the somewhat near future, I think. I haven't seen a new update from them in a while. Will only be coming out at this time for iOS. So good news for you iOS users, unfortunate for all the Android users. So again, this level is very similar to the last 2. Not a lot has changed here. I do think that there's an ogre at the end of this one, so I'll comment on that when it gets to that, but aside from that, this level, pretty similar to the last one. So here is the ogre. Now the ogres, and there are a couple different types of ogres throughout the game, they hit pretty damn hard. And the idea here is you really want to draw the attention from your high defense characters and just kill them as fast as possible. If you have skills that will help mitigate them, like for instance the monk, his skill, it becomes kind of a mitigation tool later, but at this time you actually just hit every enemy in the screen once, or if there's less than, I guess less than 4, you'll just hit 3 times, I should say, I'm sorry. So if there's 2 enemies, you'll actually hit the 2 enemies each twice for a total of 4 hits, which is nice. If there's 1 enemy, you'll hit him just 3 times. If there's 3 enemies, you'll hit each enemy once, and then any enemies beyond that, you'll hit 1 time. So the mitigation strategies usually are things that would knock the enemy over. Later in the game, the monk's skill actually upgrades to where anybody hit with that skill will actually slow them down for a little while, and that can help by increasing the amount of time that the wizard can hit the ogre before it gets to your warrior. So I'm going through here, and this is always a good idea to run through the merchant, find out how many blue arrows you have. As you can see, as you run through the equipment that's in there, any weapons or armor that are in there that match one of your characters will either give you a red arrow or a blue arrow, or no arrow if it's the exact same piece that you have equipped. Anything you see a blue arrow on, it's always a good idea to pick them up through the merchant. Now, one of the alternative ways that you can actually upgrade your equipment is to go into the armory and pay to just do a direct upgrade. So it'll just notch your equipment up 1 level over what it is. There's 2 problems with that that make that not an ideal way to upgrade your equipment. A, it's more expensive than just buying the next piece of equipment when it shows up in the merchant. But B, you don't actually get to sell the old piece. So I'll explain that a little bit more. Let's go ahead and talk about this first boss. So this is the Warthog Goblin. the first boss you run into, you might actually have to grind a little bit before you fight him. The tactics are pretty much straightforward for what you've been seeing. He comes out, he throws bombs at you, he calls other enemies. You want to make sure that your casters don't get hit by the bombs, because that would be no bueno. But essentially what I do is I keep my warrior on him, and then I have my DPS take any adds if necessary. At some point in time when you do enough damage, he runs off. You know, you see him doing this back and forth thing here. When he's doing that, he will hit your characters a little bit. He doesn't do a lot of damage when he's doing that. But the trick is that at that point in time, he's invincible. So when he's running back and forth, just try to clean up all the adds you can. And then when he stops running, get right back on him like I have already. Uh-oh. I grouped my enemies, or my guys, too close together, and he got him with a bomb. For this particular enemy, it's not a good idea to group up the way that I have right now. Like, for instance, the wizard, like I just pulled him out. He needs to be out of there. But again, you can rest assured that he's just going to go ahead and do the exact same thing. He's going to call some of his little allies around you to make sure that those allies don't, those enemies, don't attack your allies. And then when he starts running, just clean everybody up. Rinse and repeat. So that's it. That's the strategy for this guy, and I will jump back in once he's dead. That is it. That's the boss. He's toast. Now, you get a special animation when they die, but other than that, really, the bosses don't give you anything different. little bit extra experience as per the levels that are around him. You can see probably an extra 20% or so. For that reason, when you're grinding, it always makes sense to go back and grind on bosses because they're usually quicker battles and they give more experience than the levels around them. So I've hit level 5 with somebody. By hitting level 5, you can go back into the academy and you can check out the new skills that they have available to them. So for instance, Shepherd, I flipped through that pretty quick. Shepherd has the ability to intimidate, which makes everybody attack him, or he gets this cool cleave swiping skill where he does a whirlwind and slashes everything around him. The Cleric, you can power infuse, which gives extra power, or you can defense infuse, which gives extra defense. I like the power infuse. I tend to go offensive in this game in most cases. The Wizard can freeze everybody in the screen for a certain amount of time, or time stop somebody for a shorter amount of time, only attacking one person. The Monk can become heavily invasive or do a Kai Blast, which knocks everybody to the ground. I tend to like items that are offensive, A, and B, stun enemies. So that's what I've picked here for the most part, is power inducing and knocking down, stunning attacks. So quick note before I start the next level, on the map you actually see that there's a skull that I've passed that I never actually fought that level. That's because on every map there's at least one of these endless battles that you fight, and then the idea is to rack up as many kills as you can while the enemies continue to get stronger and stronger. At the end of this fight, when you do eventually lose, because you have to lose, you'll get an item based on how many of the enemies you killed. Now, some of the best items in the game can be received this way, and that's the only way you can get them. For this guide, I'm actually going to skip that piece and just go straight through the regular game. So you'll see these levels, and I'm not going to touch them, but I'll come back around in another guide and explain those in more detail. So, next level. Different background. It's night now. So, skeletons, new enemy. For the most part, skeletons, they act just like the goblins did from the previous levels. It's just a warrior class type enemy that'll come out and hit you with melee attacks. You can see now that I have my monk too, I'm spreading my guys out a little more. I tend to like to keep one melee character in the back, one in the front, for exactly what just happened. We got attacked from both sides, and now I got a melee character to cover both ends. The bad part about this is that the monk is not designed to be a tank. If you had a second tank, which there are other tanks available in the character unlocks as you go through, you could do this a lot more effectively. Because the monk's not technically a tank, he goes down a little quicker. So usually you'll see what I do is I keep Bromswell the Wizard teamed up with the monk so that the DPS is high enough that the monk doesn't go down super quick. And then Shepherd usually leads the front. And you have to have very effective use of your cleric in order to do this, because the cleric needs to bounce back and forth between your two melee attackers in order to keep them both alive. Shepherd will have to use his shield very often, and the monk is just going to have to do some serious ass whoopage in order to stay alive. So at this point in the game, you also start to get ogres on a more regular basis. Previously in the game, ogres were almost kind of like a mini-boss that were pretty much reserved for the very end of a particular level. Now you start to see them show up more and more in the level. Each level also is not random in which enemies appear and when. It's all set up, so it's the exact same every time you play through it. So if you're having a tough time beating a specific level, just try to remember exactly what enemies come out where, so that you can prepare for them and know how to attack them. Looks like I got myself in a little bit of an issue right now because Shepherd was run low on health. So you can do one tactic that I'm starting to do right here, which I only did for a short amount of time, is reverse kite. So what reverse kite is you have Shepherd go in and draw the attention, the aggro, from a large enemy, and then have Shepherd just run around the screen while the rest of your characters beat the ever-loving shit out of that enemy. Which is exactly what I did. I followed through with it. It's effective, it might take a little bit longer, and sometimes you can get other enemies entering the screen, which can complicate matters, but oftentimes it's effective. Ooh, good use of aggro with the monk there. So the freezing attack that Bromswell now does, not only does it slow all the enemies down on the screen, but it also hurts them a little bit. So sometimes you'll see me just use it even when there's enemies that aren't moving. It's just to do that extra little bit of damage, because I felt it's better to just use it and try to let it refresh than have to wait for a really appropriate time to use that skill. Another ogre already. See, that's good right there. That's good management from the monk, just to, you know, blast him down, get him in there, and blast him down, kind of mitigate the fact that the ogre does a lot of damage, while Lucille tries to get caught up a little bit on healing. Uh-oh, I left the monk idle there. I shouldn't have done that. And now I've resorted to another reverse kite. So this is very effective reverse kiting right here, where Bromswell's actually slowed the ogre down for a little while, and the ogre's trying to attack Shepherd, who is all the way on the other side of the screen. Very effective reverse kiting, but that can only really work if it's just the ogre in the screen. Once you have other enemies in there, you can freeze and reverse kite for a little bit, but if you get too many additional adds in there, too many additional extra enemies, you're going to have to resort to another type of approach. So, back in the menu we are... and we're going straight into the next level. Looks like that was probably an edit. I actually grinded a little bit there for a little while because that last level was a little bit difficult, so I felt I should raise a couple levels before I jump into the next piece. So here we are in the graveyard. So archers. Something to be said about archers. Archers don't actually draw aggro. They're a special aggro enemy. Their fixation is on all of your guys at the same time. Just attacking them won't draw their fire to one particular person, so really you need to focus on getting them dead, because they will attack your cleric no matter what you do, and they'll attack everybody. The nice thing is that their attacks are random. The bad thing is that their attacks are random. It makes healing a lot harder, and they tend to, in groups, they'll tend to wear your party down equally, which makes healing very difficult. Now also, these bats, early on in the game, they're a lot like warriors. They find fixation, the aggro, and then sometimes you can peel them off and put their aggro on another guy. There's red bats later in the game that when they come into the field, they fixate on one person, and they will only attack that one person. You have to kill them in order to get their fixation to end. So reverse kiting tends to be the best approach on those enemies. There's also slimes that are similar to that, and we'll see those later in the game. So here you can see they've added in a mix of ogres and skeletons. But from my understanding, like I said previously, the ogres and I'm sorry, not ogres, goblins. The goblins and the skeletons are approximately the same enemy. I've set my stance up pretty good here. So solid approach here. I have my DPS characters wiping out all the lower level stuff while Shepherd just goes ahead and takes care of the ogre. This only works if Shepherd is actually equipped well enough to handle the offense that the ogre can dish out. Because those ogres, especially later in the game, they can hit pretty damn hard. So you need to make sure that Shepherd is properly equipped, or else he'll go down just like everybody else. Which happens. There you go, knock him down. Beat the crap out of him. Give me your lunch money, bitch. And he's dead. Uh-oh, forgot to protect my cleric there. There we go. Whoa, now, almost died with Shepherd, too. And that'll happen. That's the problem. It's not a problem with this game. That's the exciting factor about this game, is that there's so much going on that oftentimes you'll forget about one character, and that's usually how you'll have one die. And it's really a house of cards your team is too, because once one character dies, you have to drastically change the strategy that you're approaching in the game, or that you're trying to apply in order to survive. For instance, if Shepherd were to go down, you kind of now have to have your monk be your tank, which is not very effective. So you reside a lot on, or you rely a lot on reverse kiting. And on to the next level. Or maybe not. Oh, checking levels real quick. Just to see where we are, because you want to make sure that when you hit level 10 that you activate the skills right away. If you don't, if you end up fighting the levels, it doesn't actually pick one for you. Anytime that you have a choice of one skill or another, you have to actually go in there and pick it, or else you'll just continue to level up and never have a skill. Once you have activated a skill, it's not possible to ever take that skill back off. You can swap it with the other skill, but you can't de-equip a skill. So this level starts out with 2 ogres. That's kind of a challenging thing. That was an effective knockout. What I should be doing though here, probably better to be doing a reverse kite. Draw the aggro into Shepherd and then just walk them around the level. But I guess what I'm doing is also effective. There's enough defense in Shepherd at this point to handle 2 ogres, so he's handling 2 ogres. Alright, so let's go into the last level of Haggerdom. This is the spider boss of this first map. There's actually 3 maps throughout the game. The first one is finished off with this spider boss. So this is not really that much of a tricky boss. He does a couple interesting things with aggro. For the most part, he just comes out and tanks. And then after a while, from when you've been fighting him, he'll actually summon out, he'll jump on you. That's not a really big super surprise there, but he summons in little buddies to help him. That can be an issue. And he'll also tangle up one of your allies. You'll see that here in a minute. He shoots webs out, and it'll stop them from moving, and it makes them so they can't use actions as well. So, pretty effective use of freezing and the monk's ninja ability there. And the jump, that's the one thing. When the spider does the jump, first of all, he'll attack a random ally of yours, and then he randomly selects a person that he's going to attack. He randomly reselects his aggro. So you'll have to get Shepherd to move in and heal him again. But it's not that difficult. I mean, really, this is just one of those endurance battles. You just have to last long enough to finish him off. It's very similar to the Warthog Goblin. Alright, so heading into the second map, which is Brightstone, the first level introduces a brand new enemy. So in this particular level, we start to first see the enemy healers. They don't pop up right away, but when you have the enemy healers show up on the field, it becomes imperative. There they are right there, there's the first one. It becomes imperative to take him out as fast as possible. Because he doesn't move, the ice spell doesn't do a whole lot. Really what you need to do is you need to stun him. You need to focus all your attention on him and stun him. A lot of times what I'll do is just take all my DPS characters and shift them, especially if you have ranger type characters or caster type characters. Those are really good because the healers will kind of transmute themselves. They'll teleport. They teleport all over the map. So having melee characters go after them is not super effective, but if it's what you have, then it's what you have. You'll be able to take them out eventually. It becomes more tricky when you get two healers at the same time, and that does happen in some of the later levels. When that happens, you need to get all of your damage going to one of the casters at a time, because they will be able to heal themselves up, and it causes a nightmare for you if you don't actually take out, focus on one caster at a time and take them both out. It gets really, really tricky once you get a bunch of casters and you get ogres at the same time, because then you have a lot of DPS coming at you and you have a lot of healing getting done. Overall though, if you know how to attack the casters and know that you need to go after those healers, if you know that that's what you're supposed to focus, it becomes kind of a non-issue. But that's the trick for this new enemy. Dusthide Badlands. So this is the first level that actually has 2 healers at the same time, and you'll see exactly how I deal with that here. And like I mentioned in the previous level, the real approach to take is to just divert all of your attacks all on the healers. So there they are, 2 guys at the same time. And you really want to bust out too, so just use every skill you have to just wreak havoc on them. Ooh, I missed him. But you can see, they're tough to take out, because they will divert all their healing to the one enemy. But yeah, there you go. And then once you've split them up, you can kind of divert some of your guys to the other guys. It appears as though that's not what I did here, but you can, take Shepherd off and have him go fight something else. And then have your DPS guys clean up the other healer. Lost Grotto. This is the first level where slimes begin to appear. And the first ones that you get in the game are actually green slimes. They're not too bad. They're a little easier to deal with as far as aggro is concerned. If I remember correctly, aggro's not too bad on these. Maybe you can divert them. Anyways, they do hit hard though. They're little bastards when it comes to how hard they hit. So let's see. Boosh. Yes, they are strong, and the problem is that they're slow. They don't have a lot of hit points, they don't move very quickly, so they're really easily mitigated by things like stun skills or the ice to slow them down, and then just have like maybe your DPS come in and take them out. But they can be a nuisance. They're one of those things where if you don't take care of them right away, or if you don't realize that they're there right away, they can kind of sneak in and like take out your cleric faster than you would imagine. It'll happen very quickly, and then all of a sudden you find yourself retreating. So slimes, gotta watch out for those, and they are pretty much in the rest of the game. Alright, so we got some new skills, and it looks like I'm a couple of levels late on actually activating them. So for the Cleric, we can splash our heals or make our heals more productive. We'll choose that one. For the Wizard, we can make our Fireball splash or make the Fireball more effective. And I'm thinking. Alright, for the Monk, what do we got? We can knock down our opponents or just deal more damage. And that's the same thing with Shepherd, is his attacks were something similar where it was more damage or it was his attacks, I think it was his attacks make it so the enemy is weaker or that the enemy deals less damage or takes more damage. Something like that. It was a passive ability. Level 10 is a passive ability for all the characters. So three slimes at the same time. Wow, they're really pulling out all the full stops here. So slimes, you can tell from an aggro perspective, I guess they don't change. I was thinking the slimes were actually early on able to manage aggro, but I guess you can't. So slimes lock on to one of your allies, and that is the ally that they're going to go after consistently. So the trick is then to just reverse kite them. Find out which guy that they're attacking and get that guy the hell out of there. Kind of like the Monk just now. I moved the Monk out and now I'm just fighting with Shepherd. The idea is to just keep the one that they want away from them. And they're pretty easy to handle that way, as I have previously mentioned. Aside from that, this level is pretty much all the same stuff again, just in an increased amount. Same kind of ogre. Pretty soon the green ogres come in. That is when things get a little trickier. Alright, so now we are heading into the slime boss, and this boss can actually be a bit of a headache, but later on it actually is a really easy place to grind some experience. So there's a few caveats to this boss. This boss does track whoever has the most defense, so the aggro is not too bad here, but he spits these pools of acid out. Now for your melee characters, this isn't too big of a deal because you can have your healer healing. I would recommend when fighting this enemy that you use the splash heals because they'll allow you to heal all the melee characters at the same time, because as you can see right now, I'm having a little bit of a hard time healing them both. The tricky part is when he starts to shoot his acid at the casters, because you have to keep them out as fast as possible. Not only that, it tends to take down their HP very quickly, and you have to rely very heavily on the group heal that your cleric has. As you can see, he's really picking on my cleric, and it's not looking too good at the moment. So you have to make sure and watch those HP levels, especially if you're in an earlier level fighting this guy. Something under, I'd say, 15. It's going to make this guy a little bit more difficult. Now, the tricky part about this boss is that even when you kill him, he's not dead. He's going to break into a whole bunch of different little slimes, and those are really his HP. For every one of those you kill, watch this, here's how it works. They all break up, and you want to kill these, because they're going to try to aggregate back into the big slime. And when they do, for every one you kill, he's going to be that much easier to knock back down. So that first time I knocked him down, that was him at full power. And you're going to see him, he's going to be able to aggregate here because I'm not going to be strong enough to wipe all these slimes out in the first shot. Once you're about level 20 or so, you're able to take out all these slimes without him ever even reforming. So here we go, here he goes, and poof, now he's back. You're going to notice this time when I'm killing him, he's going to die a lot quicker. So again, like other bosses, this is kind of an endurance round. You need to just keep yourself healed as best as possible, but focus your skills, especially things like stunning skills and your ice. You need those for when the slimes break apart. Now, one effective way to quickly grind this up is a little bit later on your cleric actually gets this spell where she blows up this big like force field around her that hurts all the enemies in her direct vicinity. So what you do is you let this slime explode, pinpoint exactly where all the little slimes are going to be collapsing in on, put Lucille the cleric right in the center of that, and then when they get pretty close to being rejoined, have your wizard cast the ice spell to slow down all the slimes, and then have Lucille hit that force field to just decimate them really quickly. If you continue to use those tactics along with other stuns and slowdowns and knockbacks and all that, you should be able to take out all the slimes in just one turn, especially when you're the higher level, because your attack power is higher as well. It also helps here to have Bromswell have his skill where his regular attacks do splash damage, because that'll help here, obviously, by hitting multiple slimes at the same time. Alright, so in this next section that's coming up, you're going to have to apologize the fact that I lost some video. So it actually shows that I beat the next 3 levels, and I have to go back and replay them. I beat them all in succession, boom, 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 and then realized that my video capture was crap. So you can see here, I'm a little farther than what the playthrough would say that I was. So I'm going to go back and rip through them one more time. I guess it was the next 4 levels. Anyways, this is the first level that has the red bats. The red bats are very similar to what the slimes were. They come out and they pick their aggro, and then they just follow whoever they're fixated on. That's who they follow, and they stay fixated on that one person. Not only that, but they hit pretty hard for the level that you are at this point in the game. So you gotta be careful and kind of attack them the same way that you would attack the slimes. The difference being that the bats are a little bit faster than the slimes. So you have to be a little more cautious with them because they'll catch you a little faster. Effective use of the freezing spell and the stuns is helpful. I wonder when the first one comes in. I know they're in this level. If you haven't noticed here also, I've got some new abilities. So this is the result of me having gone back and grinded a bit. Once I beat the slime boss once, I probably played him another 5 or 6 times just to raise levels. And you can see the monk actually has an ability where he hits the enemy a whole bunch of times and then he knocks him down right afterwards, which is pretty cool. Shepherd the warrior actually has an ability now where he charges the enemy and hits him with his shield, and that knocks him down, which is really effective against enemies where you need to knock them down or stun them. Bromswell is using a lightning spell right now, but that's really not the spell that I like to use in the long term. Lightning allows him, it's very similar to the Kai power that the monk had, where it just kind of knocks everybody around him down. I like to switch that to, there's an Inferno spell that he uses where he lights the enemy on fire and it makes the enemy just like run around like crazy all over the screen. And you can see the cleric as well has an ability where she can now use her force field. It's the ability that I was mentioning in the slime boss commentary. But yeah, I do use that in this level. Crimson Hollow is the first level that has the green ogres. So green ogres are pretty much the same thing as the brown ogres, except for they're leveled up. They're much stronger. They're the same speed and such. It's just that they hit a lot harder. So at this point in the game, you are probably grinding a decent amount just to get farther in the game. Probably through the first map, the Haggerdom map, you can probably just run through it with barely any grinding. On this second map, you find that there's a little bit more grinding, and then after you finish the second map, there's a sharp increase in the beginning of the third map with how much you have to grind. It's just because the enemies are hitting you so much harder, and your skills, you have to kind of hone in on exactly how you're approaching each fight to make sure that you are not having too much aggro given to your DPS characters and that it's effectively going to your warrior. I think that green guy here steps in any moment now, somewhere in the middle of the level. Alright, finally, you big, magnificent, glorious bastard, there you are. So, the big green ogre, maybe he's considered a troll, I don't know, it's the exact same model with a different color, so that's what he is. Unlike some of the other enemies that hit very hard, he can have his aggro directed towards Shepherd. You can control his aggro if you'd like, which makes them not that much more difficult. The issue is with them, they've got a lot of HP. You can see I'm kind of doing a few tricks here to wear him down a little bit before I kind of go into my traditional fighting style. Yeah, pretty good move there. And down. Yes. So, not too hard when it's just the ogre. But in the next couple levels, they're going to use some of these same mechanics, and they're just going to increase the frequency with which they have them, with more slimes, more ogres, more red bats. Things become more difficult just because you're being swamped with more higher level enemies that hit harder. And it is Boss of Brightstone time. So this is the second map boss. This is the Golem, big rock boss. So some tricks to him, as with the other bosses. He hits like an SOB. He hits really hard. So it's very important that you get Shepherd in there right away, and you have Shepherd doing aggro peeling. And you gotta want to keep your casters away from him, but he does do this rock dropping move where you need to save your group heals for when those rocks drop. The second thing he does, which you just saw him do a second ago, is punch Shepherd across the screen. So whoever he has aggro on at that time, he'll punch them across the screen and then randomly pick a new target for his aggro to be at. You have to use Shepherd really quickly to get back in there and get that aggro peeled. The thing you just saw him do a second ago where he slowed down is his third kind of special thing. That is that he kind of goes into this ultra defense, ultra offense mode where he takes off like a third of Shepherd's health in one punch. So if you see him do that, you need to peel Shepherd immediately and run away so that he doesn't kill Shepherd in like a couple hits. You see him do that again, just a super punch. That's typically what happens right there. Is his aggro will shift to one of the casters, and then you'll have to quickly run Shepherd back in there, or get your monk or what other melee character you have in there. So there you go. There he just went into his super mode and took out a big chunk of Shepherd's health. The nice thing is that his aggro won't change once he's in that invincible mode. The bad thing is that when he goes into that super aggro mode, the real telltale sign that he's doing it is that he turns red. Well, if you set the guy on fire with Westwylde, it doesn't do you any good because you can't really see the difference between the fire red and the invincible red. It's very difficult to tell the difference. So you just have to be careful of when he goes into that mode, and then just clear your melee characters out as fast as possible. This one again, like other bosses, it's just an endurance match, much like all the bosses in this game. The trick with this one is that he does such massive offense to you that you have to really be careful with mitigating who's fighting him and what everybody's health is. Like right now, for instance, Westwylde being up there, I can't really see his health very well when his skills pop. It's a really bad place to put Westwylde. He needs to not be there. Nonetheless, though, it's just a waiting game until you can actually finish him off. And it looks like I lost my Shepherd, which is pretty typical with this fight, that you will have people go down. At least in the beginning. Once you've leveled up a little bit, this is another boss that's really good to fight for some spare experience and grinding up those levels. Spare coin. Alright, changing maps into Doomvale. So at this point in time, if you haven't already spent a decent amount of time grinding levels, you're going to need to. I suggest the slime boss just because the slime boss can be killed very quickly, and so the turnaround on his experience is very good. Additionally, with the slime boss, you can use modifiers like the experience eggs, the experience books, and the various gold multipliers as well to get you more gold to upgrade more equipment and to upgrade your levels. That being said, all that done, this level not much different than the rest of them. The only difference here is that you're seeing more of the same stuff. There is an upgrade to the archers here where you're getting the dark skeletons, and later on in this particular map you'll also see the upgraded casters and such. But there's not a lot of new mechanics moving forward in the game. It just gets really hard at this point in time, and it requires a lot of grinding. All right, Time Lost Canyon. So this is the first level with the red slimes, which the red slimes are just like the green slimes, except for when the red slimes actually get a hold of you, it feels like, holy crap, son of a bitch, ouch. They hit really super hard. So you need to make sure you figure out who exactly they're trying to attack and keep that person away from them. Very similar to the green one, only it becomes more important. There's more emphasis on don't let them get a hold of whoever they're trying to get a hold of, because it will be no bueno for them. If a red slime gets a hold of you, you're gonna have a bad time. Aside from that, all the same other mechanics, just new red slimes. So enjoy that one. Alright, so it is final boss time now in, what's the name of the level? Throne of Ruin, the Lord of the Dead. So, final boss of the game. This guy actually is pretty difficult. I'd recommend being level 30 at least to fight him. But again, it's an endurance round. There's some tricks, as there always are with the bosses in this game. You want to keep the melee characters right up front. You want to get the casters away from you, just because you want to have your guys kind of sorted out so you can have easy access to them. I'm being stupid right here and not actually doing that, but for the moment that's okay. So he does a couple different things. This Reign of Terror is very similar to the rock drop from the Golem guy. But he also calls in allies, and he does this kind of time bomb thing, this suicide bomb right here. So when you see him do that, get the hell away, because that can kill your guys in one hit. If they are a little bit low on health, or just happen to be kind of under leveled, he'll kill him in one hit. So you gotta get away from him when he does that. That's one of the reasons why it's good to only have your casters next to him, because that way you can clear out your melee characters as fast as possible. Your group heals need to be monitored, just because that rain of fireballs can actually do quite a bit of damage. So you need to be able to save your group heals if you need them for the fireballs. If you need them in the regular fight without the fireballs, use them. But know that you shouldn't use them just to patch up heals, because you'll need them for the fireballs. So he's calling some dark skeletons here. It's not, the allies that he summons are not that big of a deal. Similar to the other bosses that summon allies. So you just gotta tread through them, and he will eventually reappear. If you don't kill the enemies fast enough, he'll reappear with them right next to him. I think. Or that could be wrong. Maybe he only reappears after you kill all his allies. So I could be wrong. Nonetheless, again, endurance round. You just gotta stick it out. And unfortunately, he doesn't react to any of the stuns or the slowdowns or any type of enemy state altering attacks. He only responds to damage. So you can use your attacks, your stunning attacks, as damage, but I wouldn't recommend setting any skills that just do stuns for that exact reason. They're going to be useless, like the Monk's Kai attack. Well, I guess that does a little fraction of damage, but the other attack, I'm not sure what it is. If it does more damage, you're better off using that, just because whatever does damage is superior in this fight. There he goes, he's gonna blow! Oh, he got away. Right with a sliver of his health left, he still got away. So, not an extremely hard boss, but very similar to the Golem in that you really have to watch what all the health of your guys are, because you can have some of your allies lose health and not notice it right away. Once you wear his health out, that is the end of him. Boom, done. It's a little bit of a special animation for the final boss. However, at the end of the game, Battleheart is pretty much ending devoid. There is no real ending in the game. If you like to grind after the game, he's a good boss to grind on. But that's the ending. So make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, check us out on Facebook, check out our blog, and until next time, this is Chris with Pixel Freak.